My name is Cindy, I'm 56 years old, and I'm sitting in my lawyer's office watching my son Bradley storm through the door like he owns the place. Mother, this nonsense stops now. You're signing power of attorney over to me today. He slammed papers on the mahogany desk, his face red with entitlement. You're too old and naive to handle Dad's money. I smiled calmly, which only seemed to unnerve him more. Bradley, there's something you need to know about your father's will. I watched his face drain of color as my lawyer placed a thick folder on the table. Before we dive into this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. If family drama and stories of resilience speak to you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more. Trust me, what Bradley discovered in those documents changed everything, and you won't believe the lengths he went to before learning the truth. Let's uncover together how a son's greed met its match in a mother's quiet preparation. 6 months before that confrontation in the lawyer's office, my world had turned upside down. Harold, my husband of 35 years, had passed away suddenly from a heart attack. One moment we were planning our retirement trip to Europe, the next I was standing at his graveside, trying to comprehend life without him. The grief was overwhelming, but what came next tested me in ways I never imagined. Harold left me well provided for, though I didn't realize the full extent at first. The estate totaled $3.2 million, including our paid-off house in Westchester, a diversified investment portfolio, and his life insurance. I thought my biggest challenge would be learning to live without my soulmate. I was wrong. Bradley, our 32-year-old son, appeared at my doorstep the day after the funeral with his wife Madison. "Mom, we're worried about you being alone in this big house," he said, his concern seeming genuine at first. They started visiting daily, bringing groceries I didn't need, checking on me constantly. Madison would hover around me, watching my every move with calculating eyes. "Cindy, this must all be so overwhelming for you," she'd coo, her voice dripping with false sweetness. 3 weeks after Harold's death, they made their first move. "Mom, Madison and I have been talking. We think it would be best if we moved in with you. You know, just temporarily, to help you adjust." Bradley presented this as if it were already decided. When I politely declined, saying I needed space to grieve, his expression hardened for just a moment before the mask of concern slipped back on. The question started innocently enough. "Mom, are you sure you understand these investment statements?" Bradley would ask, peering over my shoulder at private documents. "Maybe I should look at them for you. Dad always handled these things, didn't he?" The truth was, Harold had taught me everything about our finances over the years, but he'd also taught me something else. Sometimes it's wise to let people underestimate you. When I continued handling my own affairs, Bradley's tactics shifted. He started calling my doctor, expressing concerns about my mental state. Dr. Patterson later told me Bradley had suggested I might be showing early signs of dementia. "He seemed very concerned about your ability to make financial decisions," the doctor informed me during my regular checkup. I told him you're sharp as a tack, but he kept insisting something was wrong. The betrayal stung, but worse was yet to come. At a family gathering, I overheard Bradley talking to my cousins. "I'm really worried about Mom. Yesterday she couldn't remember where she put her keys, and last week she forgot our lunch date entirely." Both were complete lies. I confronted him privately that evening. "Bradley, why are you telling people I'm having memory problems?" His response was textbook gaslighting. "Mom, I never said that. Are you sure you heard correctly? Maybe you should sit down. You look tired." 2 months into this campaign, I caught Madison in my home office during one of their visits. She had my financial documents spread across the desk, photographing them with her phone. "Oh, Cindy," she stammered when I walked in. Bradley asked me to help organize these for you. You know how messy papers can get." I said nothing, just smiled and helped her put everything back. But that night, after they left, I made my first call to an old friend who happened to be a security expert. What Madison didn't know was that Harold and I had learned long ago to keep our real financial documents in a safety deposit box. What she photographed were outdated statements and incomplete records. Still, her boldness told me everything I needed to know about their intentions. I started my own quiet preparations, beginning with hidden security cameras throughout the house and a detailed journal documenting every interaction. The golden cage they were trying to build around me was becoming clear, but they had no idea that this bird had claws. As autumn settled over Westchester, Bradley's campaign intensified into something darker and more coordinated. He arrived one October morning with a family friend named Derek Morrison, who introduced himself as a financial advisor. "Mrs. Henderson, Bradley's asked me to review your portfolio as a favor. These are complicated times, and you need professional guidance." Derek's sharp suit and practiced smile couldn't hide the predatory gleam in his eyes as he surveyed my living room like he was already calculating its value. The meeting was a carefully orchestrated ambush. Derek spread charts and graphs across my coffee table, using complex financial jargon designed to confuse and intimidate. "You see, Mrs. Henderson, at your age, managing this level of wealth requires sophisticated strategies. Bradley here has an excellent grasp of modern investment approaches. Perhaps joint control of your accounts would provide the oversight needed while maintaining your autonomy." I played along, nodding thoughtfully while internally noting every manipulation tactic they employed. When I politely but firmly declined their suggestion, Bradley's facade cracked. "Mother, you're being unreasonable. Do you want to lose everything Dad worked for? Because that's what will happen if you keep refusing help." His voice carried a threat that chilled me. "If you won't accept our help voluntarily, I'll have no choice but to contact Adult Protective Services. It's for your own good." The next betrayal cut deeper than Bradley's threats. My daughter Rachel, who had always been the sensible one, called me the following week. "Mom, I've been thinking about what Bradley said, and maybe he has a point. You have been seeming a bit overwhelmed lately." The words sounded rehearsed, foreign coming from her mouth. When I pressed her, she broke down and admitted the truth. "He promised me $500,000, Mom. Jim just lost his job, and we're about to lose our house. I'm sorry, but I need to think about my kids." The wolves weren't just circling, they were recruiting from within my own pack. But the deepest wound came from an unexpected source. Martha, my younger sister who had held my hand through Harold's funeral, appeared at my door with tears in her eyes. "Cindy, I've done something terrible," she confessed. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where we'd shared secrets since childhood, as she revealed her betrayal. "Bradley came to me last week. He knew about my money troubles, about Tom's medical bills. He said he just needed some information to help protect you." Martha's hands shook as she continued. "I told him about the anxiety medication Dr. Patterson prescribed after Harold died. Just mild sleeping pills, but Bradley said it was important for your safety." "Cindy, what have I done?" Bradley weaponized this information immediately. Within days, he filed a petition for financial conservatorship, claiming I was mentally unstable and vulnerable to financial exploitation. The court documents painted a picture of a grief-stricken widow popping pills and making erratic decisions. He even manufactured evidence, creating fake charity donation receipts suggesting I'd given away hundreds of thousands to suspicious organizations. My neighbor Frank noticed unusual activity one afternoon. "Cindy, I saw Bradley's car in your driveway yesterday when you were at your book club." He had a key? I hadn't given Bradley a key since changing the locks, which meant he'd found another way in. Sure enough, my security cameras confirmed it. Bradley had made copies of important documents, photographed personal items, and even installed something on my computer. The hidden cameras revealed more than just Bradley's break-ins. Madison was systematically cataloging my possessions, taking photos of jewelry, artwork, and even checking the labels in my clothing. They were creating an inventory of assets they believed would soon be theirs. In one particularly chilling footage, I heard Bradley on the phone. "Don't worry, the old bat has no idea what's coming. Another month max, and we'll have control of everything." It was time to bring in professional help. I hired Patricia Chen, a private investigator recommended by my security expert friend. "Keep this between us," I instructed her. "I need to know everything about my son's financial situation." What Patricia uncovered exceeded my worst fears. Bradley owed $800,000 to some very dangerous people. His supposed successful business was a front, hemorrhaging money to feed his gambling addiction. The wolves circling me weren't just greedy, they were desperate. Patricia's investigation revealed a network of conspiracy. Harold's former business partner, Richard Morse, was involved, promised a lucrative contract to manage my estate once Bradley gained control. Even my accountant of 15 years, someone I'd trusted with our most sensitive financial information, had been compromised. The depth of the betrayal was staggering, but it also gave me clarity. This wasn't a family dispute anymore, it was a criminal conspiracy, and I needed to respond accordingly. The November rain matched my mood as I sat in the county courthouse, listening to Gloria Chambers, my best friend of 30 years, testify against me. Cindy has been increasingly confused lately, Gloria told the judge at the preliminary hearing. Just last week, she called me 3 times asking the same question about our lunch plans. And she's been making strange purchases, things completely out of character. Every word was a dagger, made worse by the fact that we'd shared our deepest secrets, raised our children together, and promised to be there for each other through anything. Patricia's investigation later revealed the price of Gloria's betrayal. Bradley had paid off her entire mortgage, nearly $200,000. The woman who had cried with me at Harold's funeral had sold our friendship for the promise of financial freedom. But Gloria's testimony was just the opening act in Bradley's orchestrated performance. Richard Morse took the stand next, Harold's business partner for 2 decades. Harold always intended for Bradley to eventually manage the family assets. Richard lied smoothly. He told me numerous times that Cindy, while a wonderful wife, didn't have the mind for complex financial matters. He was planning to set up a trust with Bradley as executor before his untimely death. I wanted to scream that Harold had actually cut Richard out of several deals due to suspected embezzlement, but my lawyer motioned for me to remain calm. The hits kept coming. My accountant, Leonard Price, presented a twisted version of my financial history. Mrs. Henderson has been making increasingly erratic financial decisions since her husband's passing. Large withdrawals, unusual transfers, and resistant to standard financial advice. What Leonard didn't mention was that those withdrawals were planned charitable donations Harold and I had discussed for years, or that the transfers were moving assets to more secure positions based on Harold's own strategies. Bradley's campaign extended beyond the courtroom. He systematically contacted every family member with the same story. I was planning to donate our entire fortune to what he called a New Age cult. He showed them fabricated emails and doctored bank statements. My phone rang constantly with concerned relatives. "Cindy, we're worried about you," they'd say. "Bradley showed us the evidence. Please, just let him help you manage things until you're feeling more like yourself." The cruelest blow came through my 8-year-old grandson, Tommy. Bradley and Madison had been poisoning his mind for weeks. During what was supposed to be a regular Sunday visit, Tommy looked at me with tears in his eyes. "Grandma, why don't you love us anymore? Daddy says you want to give away all of Grandpa's money to strangers instead of keeping it for our family. Don't you want me to go to college?" The manipulation of an innocent child broke something inside me, but it also ignited a fierce determination. Madison escalated her attacks, this time targeting my reputation in the community. She planted evidence of excessive online shopping, creating fake accounts and ordering bizarre items shipped to my address. Then came the romance scam angle. "We found these emails," Bradley announced during a family meeting he'd called without my knowledge. "Mom's been talking to someone online who claims to be a European prince. She's already sent him $50,000. The emails were complete fabrications, but sophisticated enough to fool anyone who didn't look too closely. Just when I thought I couldn't feel more isolated, 2 unexpected allies emerged. Janet Wilson, my hairdresser for 15 years, pulled me aside during my regular appointment. "Cindy, you need to know something. Bradley's wife was in here last week, bragging about their plans. She said once they get control, they're putting you in the cheapest assisted living facility they can find and selling your house." Janet's eyes blazed with indignation. "I've been recording everyone who mentions you, just in case you need evidence." Frank Patterson, my neighbor and a retired attorney, knocked on my door one evening with a thermos of soup and invaluable advice. "Cindy, I've seen this before. Document everything. Record when you can. Most importantly, don't let them see your real cards until you're ready to play them. They're counting on you being the grieving widow they can manipulate. Let them keep thinking that." His guidance became instrumental in my counter-strategy. The investigation Patricia conducted went deeper, revealing Bradley's connections to dangerous people. He'd borrowed from loan sharks connected to organized crime, promising them he'd have the money within 6 months. His life depends on getting your assets, Patricia warned me. These aren't people who accept payment plans. He's desperate, which makes him more dangerous than ever. As Thanksgiving approached, I found myself alone in my house, estranged from most of my family, betrayed by my closest friend, and fighting a son who seemed willing to destroy me for money. But I wasn't really alone. In Harold's old study, I opened a safe hidden behind his favorite painting. Inside were documents he'd prepared 2 years ago, along with a letter that began, "My dearest Cindy, if you're reading this, then I'm gone and Bradley has shown his true colors. Everything you need to protect yourself is here." December arrived with an early snowstorm and a court date that Bradley circled on his calendar like a predator marking prey. I watched from my bedroom window as he pulled up to my house in a new BMW, Madison beside him wearing designer clothes and jewelry they clearly couldn't afford. They were already spending money they didn't have, confident that within weeks they'd control millions. What they didn't know was that every move they made was being recorded, analyzed, and cataloged for my own purposes. The week before the conservatorship hearing, I began playing a role that would have made Harold proud. In public, I appeared increasingly frail and confused. At the grocery store, I asked the cashier 3 times if I'd already paid. At the bank, I fumbled with simple transactions, looking bewildered when the teller asked for my PIN. Word spread quickly through our small community, reaching Bradley exactly as intended. "She's getting worse," I heard him tell someone on a recorded phone call. "By next week, this will all be over." Bradley's confidence made him sloppy. On December 14th, the night before our court date, my security cameras captured him using a bump key to enter my house at 2 in the morning. He moved directly to my office, where I deliberately left what appeared to be my complete financial portfolio. I watched the live feed from Janet's house, where I was spending the night for safety, as Bradley photographed every document with trembling hands. The planted papers told a story designed to feed his assumptions. Bank statements showing dwindling accounts, investment summaries indicating poor decisions, and most importantly, records of a hidden account containing only $50,000. I could see the disappointment and then calculation on his face as he processed this information. Instead of millions, it appeared I'd somehow squandered most of the inheritance through bad investments and excessive charity. "Madison, you're not going to believe this," Bradley whispered into his phone as he rifled through more papers. "The old woman has blown through almost everything. There's maybe 300,000 left, tops. That hidden account she thought we didn't know about? 50 grand. That's it." I could hear Madison's shrill voice through his phone, angry and disbelieving. "Are you sure? Check again." But Bradley was already planning. "It doesn't matter. We proceed tomorrow. Even 300,000 will buy us time with the creditors." What Bradley found was exactly what Harold and I had prepared for someone like him to find. 3 years ago, when Harold first noticed discrepancies in the company books that pointed to Bradley's embezzlement, we'd begun moving assets quietly. The real estate had been transferred to an irrevocable trust with specific provisions. The investment accounts Bradley thought he knew about were decoys, holding just enough to seem legitimate. Our actual wealth was protected behind layers of legal structures that Harold, ever the strategic planner, had established with the help of estate attorneys in 3 different states. That night, unable to sleep despite the safety of Janet's guest room, I met with my real attorney, David Thornton, at his home. David had been Harold's fraternity brother and remained unknown to Bradley. "Everything is in place, Cindy," he assured me, reviewing our preparations one final time. The video depositions, the evidence Patricia gathered, the forensic accounting reports. Bradley has no idea what's waiting for him tomorrow. The most damning evidence came from Harold himself. 2 years before his death, he'd recorded a series of video testimonies with David, detailing Bradley's theft from the company, his gambling addiction, and our decision to protect the family assets. "I love my son," Harold said in one video, his face grave but determined, "but I love my wife more, and I won't let him destroy her life after I'm gone." If you're watching this, it means he's shown his true nature. Cindy, my darling, forgive me for not handling this while I was alive. But I know you're strong enough to do what needs to be done. We also had recordings of Bradley from the past 6 months, courtesy of the security system and Patricia's surveillance. His conversations with loan sharks, his plots with Madison, his promises to various family members, and most damningly, his detailed plans to have me declared incompetent and placed in a facility. Once we have control, he'd told Madison in one recording, we ship her off to that place in Jersey. $1,500 a month instead of the $10,000 those luxury places cost. She won't know the difference in her condition. David had one more surprise. Cindy, we've been monitoring Bradley's communications with his creditors. They're getting impatient. We've documented threats against him and Madison, which establishes his desperate motive. But more importantly, we've found evidence that he's been planning this since before Harold died. There are emails discussing how to handle the inheritance dated 6 months before Harold's heart attack. The implication hung heavy in the air, though we had no proof of anything more sinister. As dawn broke on December 15, I prepared for battle. I dressed in the outfit Harold had loved, the navy suit I'd worn to his CEO ceremony 20 years ago. But I added touches of confusion. Mismatched earrings, reading glasses on a chain around my neck while wearing another pair on my head. Let Bradley think he was walking into an easy victory. He had no idea that everything he'd done, every lie he'd told, every person he'd corrupted, had been documented and prepared for presentation. The real accounts, the ones Bradley never found, told a different story. Harold's life insurance alone was worth $2 million. The investment portfolio, carefully managed and grown over decades, held another $4 million. The real estate, including 2 rental properties Bradley knew nothing about, added another $2 million. Harold had taught me well, but more importantly, he'd protected me even from beyond the grave. Today, our son would learn what happened when greed exceeded grasp, and when a mother's love finally reached its limits. The courthouse corridors buzzed with family members who'd come to witness what they believed would be my downfall. I recognized cousins I hadn't seen in years, Harold's former colleagues, and neighbors who'd been fed Bradley's poison. They whispered behind their hands as I shuffled past, playing my role to perfection. I clutched my purse with shaking hands, dropped my reading glasses twice, and asked the bailiff 3 times what room we were supposed to be in. Bradley, walking ahead with Madison and their lawyer, radiated smug confidence. Judge Patricia Winters called the conservatorship hearing to order at 9 sharp. Bradley's attorney, Martin Fitzgerald, launched into a presentation worthy of a Hollywood drama. Your Honor, we're here today to protect a vulnerable widow from financial ruin. Mrs. Henderson, while a loving mother, has shown increasing signs of cognitive decline following her husband's death. We have extensive documentation of erratic behavior, questionable financial decisions, and susceptibility to exploitation. The evidence Fitzgerald presented was impressive in its thoroughness. Testimony from Gloria about my supposed confusion. Medical records twisted to suggest mental instability. Bank statements showing unusual transactions, all taken out of context. Madison took the stand, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue. We just want to help Mother Henderson. Last week, I found her trying to write a check for $100,000 to a charity that doesn't even exist. When we try to help, she becomes paranoid and accusatory. It breaks our hearts. For 45 minutes, they painted a picture of a broken woman, lost without her husband, easy prey for scammers and unable to manage basic finances. Bradley himself testified, his voice cracking with practiced emotion. My father would be devastated to see what's happening. He always told me to take care of Mom if anything happened to him. I'm just trying to honor his wishes and protect her from herself. The family members in the gallery nodded sympathetically, completely taken in by the performance. Then something unexpected happened. The courtroom doors opened, and David Thornton entered with 2 assistants wheeling boxes of documents. Your Honor, I apologize for the interruption. I'm David Thornton, representing Mrs. Cynthia Henderson. We've been gathering evidence that this court needs to see before making any decisions about my client's competency or financial future. Fitzgerald objected immediately. Your Honor, this is highly irregular. We weren't informed of additional counsel. Judge Winters, known for her thoroughness, overruled him. Mr. Fitzgerald, we're discussing taking away a woman's fundamental rights. I'll allow Mr. Thornton to present his evidence. Proceed, counselor. What followed was a systematic destruction of every lie Bradley had told. David began with the security footage, playing video after video of Bradley breaking into my home. The courtroom gasped as they watched him rifle through my belongings, photograph documents, and install spyware on my computer. These recordings spanned 6 months, Your Honor. Over 30 illegal entries, each one a felony. Next came the audio recordings. Bradley's voice filled the courtroom, discussing his plans with Madison. The old bat has no idea what's coming. Once we have control, we ship her off to that cheap facility in Jersey. I've got Morrison ready to testify she's losing it, and Price will back up whatever financial story we need. Madison's face went white as her own voice joined the chorus. Make sure your sister plays along, or she doesn't get her cut. The third revelation brought complete silence to the room. Harold appeared on screen, healthy and sharp, just 2 years before his death. My name is Harold Henderson. I'm recording this testimony on March 15, 2023, in the presence of my attorney David Thornton and witnesses. I'm of sound mind and body, as certified by Dr. Michael Roberts, whose evaluation is attached to this recording. Harold's familiar voice filled the room, and I saw several people wipe away tears. I've discovered that my son, Bradley Henderson, has been embezzling from my company for the past 5 years. The forensic accounting reports, prepared by Sterling Financial Investigations, show a pattern of theft totaling approximately $400,000. Furthermore, Bradley has accumulated gambling debts exceeding $800,000 to individuals connected with organized crime. The crowd's sympathy for Bradley evaporated as Harold continued detailing his son's crimes with receipts, bank records, and surveillance footage from the company. Because of these discoveries, Harold's image continued. My wife Cynthia and I have taken steps to protect our assets. We've established an irrevocable trust that specifically excludes Bradley from any control or significant inheritance. These measures are detailed in documents filed with attorneys in New York, Connecticut, and New Jersey. Bradley is to receive a total of $50,000 from my estate, to be distributed at $2,500 per month for 20 months. This decision is final and was made to protect Cynthia from the financial manipulation I know Bradley will attempt after my death. The fourth revelation was equally devastating. David presented evidence that every witness against me had been bribed or coerced. Gloria's mortgage payoff was documented with bank records. Rachel's promised $500,000 was shown in text messages. Richard Morse's expected management contract was detailed in emails. Even the accountant Leonard Price's betrayal was exposed through recorded conversations where Bradley promised him a percentage of the estate value. Patricia Chen took the stand next, presenting her investigation findings. Mr. Bradley Henderson currently owes $843,000 to Francisco Torino, a known associate of organized crime families. These debts stem from sports betting and underground poker games. Mr. Henderson has received 3 documented death threats in the past 2 months. His desperation to access his mother's assets is directly related to these threats against his life. The judge stopped the proceedings twice, once to admonish the gallery for their outbursts and once to ask Bradley if he wanted to consult with a criminal attorney. Bradley sat frozen, his carefully constructed world collapsing around him. Madison tried to leave but was informed by the bailiff that she needed to remain seated. The family members who'd come to support Bradley now looked at him with disgust and horror. Finally, David delivered the ultimate blow. Your Honor, Mrs. Henderson has been fully aware of every move her son has made. Her apparent confusion was strategic, designed to document Bradley's conspiracy. She has been attending financial management courses at the community college, studying estate law, and managing a portfolio that has actually grown by 12% since her husband's death. The hidden account Bradley discovered last night? It was bait, planted specifically to document his breaking and entering. I stood then, shedding the act I'd maintained for months. My voice was clear and strong as I addressed the court. Your Honor, I've spent the last 6 months watching my son try to destroy me for money. He's corrupted family members, bribed friends, and committed numerous crimes in his greed. Every person who testified against me today did so because Bradley either paid them or threatened them. I ask this court not only to dismiss this conservatorship petition but to refer these matters to the district attorney for criminal prosecution. Judge Winters didn't deliberate long. Her voice cut through the stunned courtroom like a blade through silk. Mr. Bradley Henderson, in my 23 years on the bench, I have rarely seen such a calculated, cruel attempt to exploit a parent. This petition is not only dismissed with prejudice, but I'm referring this entire matter to the District Attorney's Office for immediate investigation into charges of attempted financial elder abuse, breaking and entering, conspiracy to commit fraud, and perjury. The gavel came down with finality, but Bradley's composure shattered completely. He leapt from his seat, face contorted with rage. "You manipulative witch," he screamed, lunging toward me across the defense table. "You set me up. That money belongs to me. Dad promised me." Two bailiffs quickly restrained him as he continued hurling accusations. "You think you've won? You have no idea who I owe money to. They'll come after all of us." Madison tried to distance herself immediately. "I had no idea what he was doing," she stammered to anyone who would listen. "He told me we were helping her. I thought." But the recordings of her active participation had already sealed her fate. As the bailiffs led Bradley away in handcuffs, she grabbed her purse and fled the courtroom, her designer heels clicking frantically against the marble floor. I stood in that courtroom, finally dropping the mask I'd worn for 6 long months. The trembling hands steadied. The confused expression melted away. The woman who emerged was someone Bradley had never bothered to truly know, strong, strategic, and thoroughly prepared. "You thought my silence was weakness," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "You mistook my grief for vulnerability. You saw my age and assumed incompetence. Every assumption you made became a weapon I used against you." The aftermath came swiftly. Within a week, Bradley faced 17 criminal charges. His lawyer, presumably no longer confident of payment, withdrew from representation. The court appointed a public defender who looked barely older than my grandson. Madison filed for divorce before the ink was dry on the criminal complaints, but her own charges for conspiracy meant she wouldn't escape unscathed. Rachel came to my door 3 days after the hearing, mascara streaking her cheeks. "Mom, I'm so sorry. I was desperate, and Bradley promised. My kids were going to lose their home." I let her stand on my doorstep in the December cold for a full minute before responding. "You chose money over your mother. You chose a lie over truth. Your financial problems were real, but your solution was to help destroy me. I'll ensure your children have college funds, but you and I are done." I closed the door on her sobs, feeling neither satisfaction nor regret. The extended family scattered like roaches when lights came on. Those who had eagerly believed Bradley's lies now sent apologetic cards and emails. I responded to none of them. Martha, my sister, faced complete ostracism from the family. At the Christmas gathering I didn't attend, she sat alone while cousins and relatives pointedly ignored her. Gloria lost her standing in our social circle overnight. The book club expelled her. The charity board asked for her resignation. Her husband left her when he learned she'd betrayed their closest friends for money. But amidst the wreckage of false relationships, true friendships shone brighter. Janet, my hairdresser, became a regular lunch companion. Frank from next door introduced me to his investment club, where savvy retirees shared strategies and supported each other. Patricia Chen, no longer just my investigator, became a trusted advisor and eventually a friend. The network of people who'd stood by me grew stronger, united by integrity rather than greed. The depth of my actual preparation shocked even David Thornton when we reviewed everything together. "Cindy, this is remarkable. You and Harold built a fortress. The irrevocable trust was just the beginning. There were educational trusts for grandchildren that bypassed their parents entirely. Charitable foundations that would outlive us all. Investment strategies that had turned our original nest egg into something Harold would have called generational wealth. Bradley's creditors, learning he would inherit nothing, turned their full attention to him. He was moved to protective custody in prison after 2 attempts on his life. Francisco Torino's organization didn't forgive debts, even for inmates. Bradley sent letter after letter begging for help, for money, for forgiveness. I read none of them, forwarding them unopened to David for filing. I revealed to David something I'd kept secret throughout the ordeal. Harold knew Bradley would do this. 2 months before he died, he told me to be ready. He said, "When I'm gone, Bradley will show you who he really is. Let him. Document everything." Then show him who you really are. I'd spent 35 years learning from a brilliant strategic mind. Bradley had spent those same years learning only to take. The investigation revealed more than just Bradley's current crimes. Forensic accountants found he'd been stealing from Harold's company for 7 years, not 5. He'd falsified expense reports, created phantom vendors, and skimmed from client accounts. The total exceeded $600,000. The company's board, horrified by the revelations, voted to pursue full restitution, adding civil suits to Bradley's mounting criminal troubles. Madison's situation deteriorated rapidly. Without Bradley's promised windfall, she couldn't maintain their lifestyle. The BMW was repossessed. The designer goods were pawned. She moved back with her parents in Ohio, working minimum wage at a department store while awaiting trial. Her social media, once full of luxury aspirations, went dark. The woman who'd photographed my jewelry while planning to steal it now couldn't afford costume pieces. 3 months after the hearing, I stood in my lawyer's office again, but this time for a different purpose. I want to establish a foundation for protecting seniors from financial elder abuse, I told David. Harold left me more than money. He left me knowledge and the strength to use it. Other people need that same protection. The Cynthia and Harold Henderson Foundation would provide legal resources, education, and support for elderly victims of family financial abuse. Bradley's attempt to destroy me would instead help protect countless others. Spring arrived with cherry blossoms and closure. The criminal trials concluded with predictable results. Bradley received 8 years in federal prison for wire fraud, conspiracy, and elder abuse charges. The judge called his actions a breathtaking betrayal of fundamental family bonds. Madison pled guilty to lesser charges, receiving 2 years probation and 300 hours of community service at senior centers, an ironic sentence that fit her crimes perfectly. She was also ordered to pay restitution, though her minimum wage job meant victims would wait decades for pennies on the dollar. I sat in the courtroom for Bradley's sentencing, not out of vengeance but for closure. When given the chance to speak, he remained defiant. My mother manipulated this entire situation. She and my father conspired to cut me out of what was rightfully mine. Even facing nearly a decade in prison, he couldn't acknowledge his actions. The son I'd raised, loved, and protected had been consumed entirely by greed. As guards led him away, he didn't look back. Neither did I. The first time my grandson Tommy visited after everything settled, he was shy and uncertain. Madison had poisoned his young mind with lies about Grandma not loving him anymore. We sat in my garden, planting tomatoes like we used to when Harold was alive. Grandma, he asked quietly, why did Daddy do those bad things? I chose my words carefully. Sometimes people let wanting things become more important than loving people. Your daddy got confused about what matters most. By summer's end, Tommy was visiting every weekend, his trust slowly rebuilding. I honored my promise to ensure Rachel's children had educational opportunities, establishing trusts that their parents couldn't access. My daughter learned of this through her attorney, not from me. Our relationship remained severed, a casualty of choices that couldn't be undone. Martha attempted reconciliation repeatedly, but betrayal of that magnitude leaves permanent scars. Some bridges, once burned, can't be rebuilt. Gloria's fall from grace continued. Her husband divorced her, taking half of everything in the settlement. The mortgage Bradley had paid off became part of their marital assets, subject to division. She ended up selling the house anyway, moving to a small apartment across town. I heard through mutual acquaintances that she'd aged 10 years in 6 months. Betrayal, it seems, carries its own punishment. 6 months after the trials ended, I finally took the trip to Italy that Harold and I had planned. I walked the streets of Florence, sipped wine in Tuscan vineyards, and felt Harold's presence in every sunset. At a small restaurant in Rome, I met Eleanor Hastings, a widow from Boston whose daughter had tried something similar. We bonded over shared experiences and good Chianti. They think our grief makes us weak, Eleanor said. They don't realize it makes us fierce. We became traveling companions, exploring the world with the freedom our battles had earned. The Henderson Foundation grew beyond my initial vision. We helped 43 seniors in our first year, preventing financial abuse and providing resources for those already victimized. I spoke at conferences, sharing our story to packed rooms of elderly people and their genuine caregivers. The emails poured in, hundreds of stories mirroring my own. "Your strength gave me strength," one woman wrote. "I'm 78 and just stopped my nephew from stealing my life savings. I returned to school myself, not for financial management but for law. At 57, I enrolled in paralegal courses, determined to understand every weapon available to protect seniors. My professors, some young enough to be my grandchildren, initially seemed bemused by my presence. By semester's end, I was tutoring classmates and earning top marks. Knowledge, I'd learned, was the ultimate shield against those who would prey on perceived weakness. The blog I started, Silent Strength, A Widow's Guide to Financial Self-Defense, gained 10,000 subscribers in 6 months. I shared practical advice mixed with our story, creating a community of empowered seniors. The comments section became a support group, with readers sharing their own victories against family predators. One recurring theme emerged: the heartbreak of discovering that those we trust most can become our greatest threats. Bradley wrote from prison occasionally, his letters evolving from angry demands to desperate pleas. I had David screen them all, keeping them for legal records but never reading them myself. Reports from the prison indicated he'd been moved 3 times for his own safety. The gambling debts that drove his desperation followed him even behind bars. The man who'd tried to have me declared incompetent now relied on prison guards to keep him alive. 1 year after that December court date, I held a celebration of life for Harold. Not a memorial, but a party honoring the man who'd prepared me for battle even after death. Friends who'd stood by me gathered in our garden. Janet brought her famous potato salad. Frank played Harold's favorite jazz on his saxophone. Patricia came with her husband, our friendship having evolved beyond professional services. We toasted Harold with his favorite whiskey and shared stories of his strategic mind and protective heart. Tommy, now 10 and wise beyond his years, asked to speak at the gathering. "My grandpa was smart," he said simply. "He made sure Grandma would be okay. And he made sure I could go to college even though my dad made bad choices. I want to be like Grandpa, not like." He trailed off, but everyone understood. The cycle of greed would end with this generation, replaced by gratitude and wisdom. As twilight settled over the garden, I stood where Harold and I had renewed our vows on our 30th anniversary. The estate he'd protected wasn't just money and property. It was knowledge, strength, and the ability to stand firm against those who would devour us. I'd discovered that widowhood didn't mean weakness, that age didn't equal vulnerability, and that the greatest revenge against those who underestimate us is simply proving them wrong. To those facing similar battles, know this: document everything. Trust your instincts about people's motivations, even when it breaks your heart. Build your network of true allies before you need them. Never let anyone convince you that your age makes you less capable of protecting yourself. And remember that sometimes the best response to those who see you as prey is to reveal that you were the predator all along, hunting for justice with patience and precision. The money Bradley tried to steal remains protected, growing and working for good through foundations and trusts. But the real treasure Harold left me wasn't in bank accounts or stock portfolios. It was the knowledge that I could face the worst betrayal imaginable and emerge not just intact but stronger. They thought silence meant submission. They thought widowhood meant weakness. They thought age meant an easy target. They were wrong on all counts, and that miscalculation cost them everything. As I close this story, I'm preparing for a foundation board meeting, a paralegal exam, and another trip with Eleanor. Life at 57 isn't what I'd planned when Harold was alive, but it's become something perhaps even more meaningful. I've learned that the best chapters sometimes come after the worst betrayals, and that strength can bloom in the most unexpected seasons. Before you go, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Have you or someone you know faced family members who valued money over relationships? How did you protect yourself or help others stay safe from financial predators? Please share your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you or might help someone you know, please hit that like button and share it with others who need to hear that they're not alone in these battles. Subscribe to hear more stories of strength overcoming betrayal, and remember, your age is not a weakness, your wisdom is not a vulnerability, and your silence is not surrender. It's the quiet before you show them exactly who they're dealing with. Stay strong, stay smart, and above all, stay prepared. Thank you for joining me today, and may you never need these lessons but always have them ready just in case.